Hey guys, in this video today I want to talk about the iPad mini 7 and how it runs Final Cut Pro for the iPad. Yes, we have no limitations with the iPad mini 7 that has not an M chip inside, and let me explain you what I mean by that in this video today. Hey, and welcome to my channel. I'm Daniel, and on this channel it's all about DaVinci Resolve and Final Cut Pro for the iPad. So before we start here with the Final Cut Pro version for the iPad, Final Cut Pro, when it launched, it said that it's only working on the M chip iPad. What does it mean? The M chip series is the M1, the M2, and the M4. That means you needed an iPad Pro from 2021 or newer, or the iPad Air that also has the M1 or the M2. That means all the other iPads from the past, even the Pro models that didn't have the M chip, couldn't run Final Cut Pro when it came out. But we have now the iPad mini 7 with the A17 Pro chip. The A17 Pro is the chip from the iPhone 15 Pro that we had from last year. But that chip is so powerful. I made some benchmark tests even in my other video, because I already made a video showing you that we have no limitations even with DaVinci Resolve. And if you are interested in that, if you want to see what DaVinci Resolve and how it runs, definitely check out the other video that I will link somewhere here. In this video today, we want to look at Final Cut Pro. And the funny thing is, I even went to the Apple Store when I bought and purchased this iPad mini. And when you go to the Apple Store and you see all the test apps on the iPad Pro, you will have Final Cut Pro. But on the iPad mini and on any other iPad that is not the iPad Pro, you will not see Final Cut Pro. The funny thing is, they don't even advertise that on their website. If you go through the website, they don't say in a single word that you can run Final Cut Pro. I think they do this on purpose because they want that the high-end user, the creatives, the editors, the YouTubers, that they purchase an iPad Pro. But I think the iPad mini is totally underrated. Let me show you what I mean. So first of all, here we have Final Cut Pro for the iPad on the iPad mini 7. It just runs as normal. If you open the App Store, you will find Final Cut Pro to download. If you have an older iPad, like not the iPad mini 7 or an older generation with not an M chip, you will not see Final Cut Pro in the App Store to download. So then we can also open here the test project. You can just download that one to see and play around. Voila, here we have Final Cut Pro open on the iPad mini 7. And the thing is, it works as fast and as smooth, even like on my iPad Pro that I have here. This is my iPad Pro M1 that I got in 2021 with the M1 chip, and this is a beast. Most of the videos that you see here on this channel about DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut Pro, even my masterclasses that I created because I teach both software, Final Cut Pro and DaVinci Resolve, are created with this iPad Pro that I have here from 2021. The reason why, at that time I still had a Dell XPS that was a very powerful laptop, over 3,000 euros, but the M1 was actually faster in running 4K material than my Dell. My Dell over time was just getting older, and it was just a hassle to work in Premiere Pro. And then I made the switch to DaVinci Resolve when it came out for the iPad. I'm not looking back because I came from Premiere Pro 10 years and I really like DaVinci Resolve. But in this video today, of course, we're talking about Final Cut Pro because I think Final Cut Pro also has its perks, and there's a couple of things that Final Cut Pro just runs a bit better. I even would consider, even that DaVinci Resolve is running here and you can work with this, check out the other video. I would even say that this one now, the iPad mini, is even more optimized for Final Cut Pro. Because fun fact, the reason why I think the iPad mini 7 is so underrated, we also got the Apple Pencil Pro. So this is the Apple Pencil Pro that works with the iPad, and I can use all of these kind of features like the hover feature and everything. And the Apple Pencil Pro introduced these kind of new features where you can squeeze something down and you now see here all the tools that you can choose, and these kind of things only work with the Apple Pencil Pro. And this is a feature that we got with the M2 chips. So if you have an iPad Pro or an iPad Air with M2, you also have the so-called hover feature. I can only hover over my stuff and see here my timeline. That works with the timeline. That also works here in my footage. If I go through my footage, I can use the hover feature. That is something I can't do with my M1 iPad Pro with the regular Apple Pencil, which by the way costs the same amount. But anyway, that doesn't work with this one. And this is one of the pros that you not just get with the new iPad Pro with the M4, now you get this even in this package with the iPad mini 7. So I opened already a project here, but I will walk with you through the setups again. So if you have Final Cut Pro open, the very first time it will ask you for a subscription, because that is the big difference. If you want to have a free software, then I recommend DaVinci Resolve, because you don't need the studio version. There is a studio version with DaVinci Resolve, but only if you're really getting into it. If you want not the limitations, then you can get the studio version. It depends on what kind of work you do. But I would say 95% of all users, the free version is enough. Final Cut Pro, opposite. This is something that when it came out, the most people were like arguing about it. Oh no, it's subscription based. But to be fair, this is my honest opinion about it. It's still a very cheap software. You pay like $5 a month. And if you really use this for creating content on YouTube or for your business, then this is a no-brainer. It's a very good software. It has a couple of features that are unique, like the live drawing, so you can speed up animations just with that software. And there's a lot of things that goes into Final Cut Pro. And this is, I haven't showed you now everything here, but I will give you my feedback already beforehand. I think I don't compare these two softwares. DaVinci Resolve is the Hollywood-like software with all the bells and whistles. So if you want to have everything, then of course you go with DaVinci Resolve. But with DaVinci Resolve, I also recommend a keyboard and a mouse. We will talk about this in a sec, because you can also, of course, via Bluetooth connect to an iPad mini, to an iPad Pro, to your Mac, a Bluetooth mouse and a keyboard, and work with this one seamlessly. And also Final Cut Pro is optimized. There's a couple of shortcuts that you can use. By the way, shortcuts, if you still have an iPad, not the newest one with the normal Magic Keyboard, you can get these kind of editing foils. They exist for DaVinci Resolve and they also exist for Final Cut Pro. That's the Final Cut Pro version of it. I really like it. It protects your keyboard, but also you see all the shortcuts, what you can do, cut, copy, everything. This is now laid out for Final Cut Pro, and that works with here the iPad Pro. Back to what I was trying to say. I think that Final Cut Pro is for the more beginners. It is more optimized for just having the touch screen. So you don't need a keyboard and you don't need a mouse. You can just have the touch screen and you can work with the pencil. I will show you what I mean. If I come in here to this project, number one, you can use the Apple Pencil here. Everything is laid out on the UI so that you can use it with your fingers. So if I take this now, I can, for example, open the scroll wheel. This is a feature that doesn't exist in any of the other softwares. For DaVinci Resolve, for example, you have to buy additional hardware to get something similar like the jog wheel where you can go through stuff. Final Cut Pro has this included. This is, for example, one of the perks. And because of that, it makes it easy to edit on the go. You have everything in finger reach. And I think everybody who doesn't need the most advanced editing software on the go, Final Cut Pro is actually a very powerful editing tool, but it is not as good as DaVinci Resolve. But DaVinci Resolve, like I said, I recommend mouse and keyboard. Okay, if we compare the sizes, so because size matters if you edit, right? This is the iPad mini, this is the iPad Pro, this is the 11-inch. Of course, we also have an iPad 13-inch that is even bigger than that one. But what I want to show you is that if you look at the layout, you can actually see most of the stuff. And what you also can do is, for example, I have now here more space and I can see more in my media pool, right? But I can actually use my two fingers here to zoom in and out in my media pool and change the size. I can also change the size of the windows. I can make this bigger or smaller. Or what I, for example, also can do is if I need a lot of space, I can come in here, either do full screen to see my video. So for example, this one, now I see my video in full screen, or I can come back in here and say picture in picture mode. Now I have way more space here in my media pool and I still see my timeline in full size. And I just have this little window that I can drag wherever I want and see my videos here. If I don't want this anymore, I can just come in here and say exit picture in picture mode and I'm out in this. And another reason why I think this is so crazy, if you look at my iPad Pro setup with the Magic Keyboard, which I love for traveling and everything, but this setup, because of the Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil, is heavier than an iPad Air. And that is crazy. When I now had the iPad mini in my hands, this is so lightweight for on the go, for to go. This is a lighter setup, or even lighter than my iPhone 16 Pro. I'm not entirely sure, maybe they're kind of the same, but this is bigger, but it feels lighter than my iPhone 16 Pro. And just as in comparison, this is so heavy setup. And this is just the 11-inch. Imagine you have this one as the 13-inch with a Magic Keyboard. Not that it's bad, I love it, but it just makes so much sense to travel with that one. And this is the biggest plus, that this is so lightweight. You can hold it in one hand It's just crazy. So let's come back in here. If you want to start a new project in DaVinci, in Final Cut Pro, you just come in here to new project, and then you can say new project here on my iPad, or I can even open a project, let's say for example, on my hard drive. Because for example, this is another reason why I think this is totally underrated, because in this small package, we have all the options that the iPad Pro has as well. Like we have the USB-C that is now connected to a dongle. My microphone recording at the moment is recording on the iPad mini, so I have a podcast set up right here with my iPad mini. I also connected a external SSD, and now I can work from the external SSD. I will show you how this works. So you can come in here and say new project, and then I can give this project a name. So let's say just test project 1. By default it would say automatic, but automatic, it will take the first clips that you put in, and then it will make your timeline and your project all the settings that your clips is. If you want that, you can keep automatic. I like to change that. That's why I come in here to this automatic and check custom, and now I can change my resolution. It goes up to 4K. Most of my videos on YouTube, but it's still just 2K, so I'm happy with explainer videos just being at 1080, 1920 by 1080. And landscape orientation. If you want to do vertical videos or for TikTok and shorts, then you would change this here to portrait, then the numbers get flipped, and then you have the short videos. But I want to do it landscape. Then the color space, the most common color space is the Rec 709. Why? Because most devices, TVs, screens, they show Rec 709. So if you're not sure and you want to make a movie that is viewed on all devices very good, then you choose Rec 709. If you record videos, let's say for example with your iPhone, and the iPhone is capable in recording HDR material, and you have to know, not every device can show HDR. The iPhone screen can, the newer iPad Pro screens can, but not all iPads. I'm not even sure if the iPad mini 7 can actually show HDR videos. Let me know in the comments, because my iPad Pro, for example, I still had just the 11-inch with 256 gigabytes. This is not the XDR display. If you buy an iPad Pro now, you will get the XDR display. If you even buy an iPad Pro with M4, you even get the OLED screen. They have amazing brightness, and you can see HDR content. This is maybe one of the downsides of the package of the iPad mini 7. You cannot, maybe let me know, maybe you can, but I think it's the same screen that I have here on my iPad Pro when I check the specs, which is still good enough. Like for most of the stuff that I do, amazing. So what do you do here? If you don't want to show HDR video, then you keep it at Rec 709, because that's the most common color space. And the other one that you can choose is HDR. So then the frame rate, it depends now how you want to use your project. Like for example, I like to have the cinematic frame rates, 24 frames. My cameras are set to 24 frames most of the time as well. Why? Because that frame rate gives this kind of motion blur effect, like you see in Hollywood. If you go up, let's say for example 30 or even 60 frames, that's more reality TV shows. So just by choosing the frame rate, you can change the look of your movie. You haven't done anything else, just by the frame rate. But keep in mind, if your camera shoots 30 frames and now you change it to 24 frames, what the program will do, it will actually cut out frames. And then if that is the case, if you record it in 30 frames, then your movie could look a little bit awkward. Why? Think about, you have 30 frames and now I just take out a couple of frames. This is not in a perfect pattern. That means sometimes the movie looks good and then you have a couple of like Ruckler in Germany we would say, like stocking images. So you don't want that. So if you record in 30, keep the timeline here at 30 as well. But if you want to create the cinematic look, record in 24 frames, like my Canon for example, I record in 24 frames and then I can select here 24 frames. The rest, location, Final Cut Pro for iPad, this is now on my iPad. If I click here, I can also say choose location. And now I can, for example, come here to my external SSD and I have a folder here, test for Final Cut Pro. And now I can say here, open, call this 2 because I already have one, number 2, continue. And now I can tell him where to take my footage. I can immediately record a video if I want. I could open the Final Cut Pro camera here. I can create a live multicam. If I, for example, have the Final Cut Pro camera app on different devices, I can now record at the same time with different devices. Then you would choose the live multicam. Or if you already imported your images and videos to your photos or to your files, depends on where it is. I now go to the photos because I have a couple of images and videos here. So I can select these ones here and then I say add. And now it will create, should create. Yes, now it's creating my project and it will import all of the media. Final Cut Pro was designed in a way that even if you used an external SSD, it would always copy the footage to the hard drive of your iPad. That's why it's important to have a bigger storage if you have the iPad. My iPad mini, for example, now has 256 gigabytes. It's the same like I have here on my iPad Pro, just because I want to edit videos. Even if I now select the hard drive, it still copies everything to the cache folders inside, because this is the way how Final Cut Pro works. It's different in DaVinci Resolve. In DaVinci Resolve, if I actually create a project on my external SSD, all the footage will be on the external SSD. So I can seamlessly work on the SSD, take the SSD, go to a desktop, and then continue working. That doesn't work as seamless here on Final Cut Pro, just that you know that. So now when I have Final Cut Pro open, the main window is 3 parts. We have the viewer here on the top. So if I click on any clip or even here on the timeline, I can see and preview my footage here. So I can click on this one, then I see here the time strip. By the way, the hover function always worked, not just with the pencil. This is part of the program. And for example, if you connected a USB mouse, you can use the USB mouse also to hover over stuff, to hover over the things. So you don't have to click here inside. I can to lock the frame, but I can also just hover over it to see what is inside of this clip, right? So this is how you can navigate through this. Then you have the timeline. So for example, if I now want to have a clip, let's say this one, for example, I can drag and drop this here down into my timeline. So, and when I'm in my timeline, it will now preview here in the viewer my timeline. So everything I see here in my timeline, I can use this. And like I said, I can use the hover function even here with my mouse. So, and by the way, I use the keyboard. This is the Newfie Air 60 V2. This is a very new keyboard. It's an amazing keyboard, has an amazing sound and everything. You can use this and connect it to this. I use the Logitech MX Master 2. That's now an older one, but it's still one of the best mouse. And the reason why I show you this now is both of these devices, Bluetooth devices, have this amazing feature. If you look here, I'm now at setting number 3. Number 1 is my MacBook. Number 2 is my iPad Pro. So now I can come in here. If I turn this on, of course, you have to have Bluetooth on and everything. So, and now my mouse is connected here. And the same with the Newfie keyboard. The Newfie keyboard has functions. If I use the function key and then Q, W, E, and R is the 4 different Bluetooth modes that they have. Currently, I'm at function E for my iPad mini. W is my iPad Pro and Q is my MacBook. So I can now say FN W, and now my keyboard is connected. You see? I can now start and stop here my iPad Pro. This is the amazing thing that even on an iPad mini, we have these features. We can connect Bluetooth devices here to our iPad mini and increase the setup and make us more productive even on the go if you want to. Of course, you don't need it, but if you are like me and you're used to shortcuts, because shortcuts can always speed up your workflow, then you can connect a keyboard and then you have your iPad set up even more professional. Okay, now I show you how you can use the iPad mini 7 and Final Cut Pro just with the touch, because it's optimized for touch. Here on the right side, for example, this is your so-called jog wheel. If you activate this, you have this jog wheel that you can use to go through your timeline. Not just that, you can place it somewhere here on the left side, right on the right side, or here on the left side. If you don't need this one, you can actually deactivate this one here with this icon here on the top. So now it's off. If you want this, turn it on. And then if you click it, I can now go through my timeline. It depends on where I am in my screen. If I, for example, click on a clip here, I can use the jog wheel here to go through my stuff and even make cuts in my timeline. So I show you this one. I can make these cuts and like this. And then, for example, instantly place this one here with the appendant. I can say append to my timeline. Now I place this clip here, a very short one, on this timeline. And another thing, if I open this jog wheel and I'm here in my timeline, what I also can do is I can, for example, select with my finger or with my pencil. I can select a clip. And if I now, for example, here on the end, you will see here on that side and on that side, you have these so-called handles. Let's just remove this one because we don't need that one. That's very small. I just use the keyboard, the backspace, but you can also do this here with the empty bin. If you want to undo something, the undo button is here on the top. So left click, then this is undo. I can also click this one and then here, for example, the garbage bin, and then it's gone as well. If I select a clip here and I go now with my pencil or my finger to the end, I can extend or lower this clip, so I can, and the same with the beginning. And if I selected one of these handles, so you will see this if I select this one. Now this one has this black line in it. So if you look here, this has the black line. If I now open my jog wheel Here on the jog wheel, I have two modes. I have the playhead mode, where I can go through my timeline, but also I can click here on this one. If I click on this, now I'm in nudge mode. So now I can use this to extend, make it longer or shorter. And the same with the beginning. I can select the beginning and make this one longer or shorter. And that's basically how you use the jog wheel here in Final Cut Pro for the iPad. If you want to do any changes, you can always select your clip, and then here on the bottom left you will find the inspector. So I can open the inspector and then I see all the different changes I can do to that clip. Like here, for example, it's all the format. I can change the opacity. So if there's a clip under this clip, I would look through that one. This is how I make this transparent. I can change the clip speed. I can change the blend mode. I can change my parameters. I can make this smaller, bigger. I can change the rotation and everything. This all happens here on the second part. Then I can change the audio from that clip. I can make effects, voice isolation. If you, for example, want to add an audio effect, you can click here on this plus icon. Then you can have a single band compressor, single band EQ, and a compressor. But these are not all the audio effects, because now let's come back out here, not the inspector. Here on the top, you have a couple of cool options. Like the first one obviously is your media pool, where all the media is in. The second one is all the different effects, transition, titles, graphics and generations, and sound packs. So Final Cut Pro comes with a pre-designed pack where you can just click on these. Let's go, for example, here under the effects. So there's a lot of effects that affect the video of my clips, but I can also go here to audio, and you see there's way more audio effects, not just the two that you saw there. And the way I can do this, here I can put a monster effect on this clip. I just drag and drop this down here, and now if I come in here to the inspector, under this third one, audio, you will see that here on the bottom, audio effect, I also have these effects, like monster, for example. I can click this and change the amount and everything what this clip or this effect is doing. If I don't want this anymore, I can disable it. I can reset all my parameters, or I can also come in here, right click on this one, and then say here, delete. If I use a video effect, that's coming back to video effects, how this works, this is a library, and every effect that you want, Final Cut Pro will download from the cloud, from the Final Cut Pro, whatever. So for example, if I want to use this expired film with green wish, if I want to use this one, I can select this to get a preview. So I can always see how this will look. And if it's downloaded, I can simply drag and drop this down here. And now this is connected to this clip. If I select the clip and I open the inspector again, the last one is all of my effects. So here I can play around with effects, add the effects, change the parameters of the effects and everything. I will not go through all of this right now. The amazing part of this video is that Final Cut Pro only works on M chips and the iPad mini 7 on an A17 Pro, and that is amazing. If you want to learn more about Final Cut Pro, because I think this is a very powerful software, I created a complete masterclass just for Final Cut Pro. So if you want to learn that one, if you are into this and you want to edit more on the go and you want to understand how this software really works and make the most out of your videos, then I would definitely recommend that you check out the masterclass Final Cut Pro. If you're into DaVinci Resolve, and of course in my other video I showed you how DaVinci Resolve worked on the iPad mini 7. It's a completely underrated device. If you have, then check out the other video, and in the description you will also find a link to the DaVinci Resolve iPad Masterclass, which is the more complex software. But at the same time, for some people this is just too much. You don't have to learn all of this to make simple videos, to make simple edits, to make good videos. You can actually make YouTube videos just using Final Cut Pro here on the iPad. That's it for this video today. If you have more questions about the iPad mini 7 and what you think about it, please let me know in the comments. I'm Daniel again. If you're into DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut Pro on the iPad, definitely check out my channel, hit subscribe, like button and everything, dingle dingle the bang bang gong, and we see us in the next video. I'm Daniel. Bye.